Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. The United States and Britain have pledged nearly $1.5 billion in additional aid to Ukraine during a visit to Kiev by top diplomats. Ukrainian officials used the occasion to renew their call to Western allies to allow their missiles be used by Ukraine against targets deeper inside Russia. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said much of the assistance they provide will be aimed at bolstering Ukraine's energy grid that Russia's repeatedly pounded ahead of an expected difficult winter. Gaza officials say Israeli airstrikes across the territory have killed at least 34 people, including 19 women and children. The strikes hit a United Nations school sheltering displaced Palestinian families as well as 2 homes. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says 6 of its staff members are among the dead. The Israeli military said it targeted the school in central Gaza because Hamas militants were planning attacks from there. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are back on the campaign trail, heading to swing states they hope to win in November. Harris has her sights set on North Carolina, where she's scheduled to hold rallies in Charlotte and Greensboro today. Trump heads to Tucson, Arizona. House Speaker Republican Mike Johnson postponed a vote on a temporary spending bill to keep the government running for another 6 months and is tied to the SAVE Act that would require proof of citizenship to vote. It's becoming increasingly clear it lacks the support to pass as a potential partial government shutdown looms at the end of the month. But Johnson signaling he's not backing off linking the two. He's seeking more time to win over members of his own party. Democrats in the Senate have said it will not past that chamber. Election security was the topic of a House Administration Committee hearing Wednesday. Edwin Vieira reports.
Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes testified to Congress that non-citizen voting isn't a real problem. He pointed to Arizona's 2004 Proposition 200, which required proof of citizenship to vote. Fontes says when he was the Maricopa County recorder, his office found tens of thousands of legitimate American citizens who were denied the ballot by the law.
Many thousands of them duplicate forms where voters tried again to register. And after thorough research, 47,000 eligible American citizens were found to have been denied the right to vote because of that law.
A 2016 Brennan Center for Justice study of more than 40 jurisdictions found non-citizens cast just 1 out of every 10,000 votes. I'm Edwin J. Vieira for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
Congressional Democrats blasted the Republican-backed SAVE Act, what they say is voter suppression, and promoted their own election security bills. Here's Democratic Congressmember Joe Morell of New York.
The Freedom to Vote Act will ensure every eligible American has access to the ballot, bans partisan gerrymandering, ensuring voters pick their representatives, not the other way around, and keeps dark money out of politics. John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act will restore the Voting Rights Act to its full strength and ensure every eligible American has equitable access to the ballot. The Native American Voting Rights Act expands pro-voter measures, providing ballot drop boxes.
Democratic Congressmember Joe Morell of New York. The death toll in Vietnam from Typhoon Yagi has climbed to 199, with 128 people still missing as flash floods and landslides take their toll. Vietnam's VN Express newspaper reported today 800 more have been injured. Francine has weakened to a tropical depression after slamming into Louisiana as a Category 2 hurricane, causing widespread power outages and sending a dangerous storm surge rushing into coastal communities. The National Hurricane Center predicts the storm would continue weakening. It's expected to slow down as it moves across Mississippi, where heavy rains and possible flash floods are in the forecast, as well as in parts of Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Suicide risk may depend on certain community-level factors, such as access to health insurance, internet, and a living wage, according to a new report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. According to the Vital Signs report, suicide rates in 2022 were lowest in counties with higher levels of health insurance coverage, household income, and broadband internet access. It says suicide rates have increased during the last 20 years years nationwide and remain high. More than 49,000 people died by suicide in 2022. Provisional data indicate a similar number for last year in 2023. The report recommends improving people's financial security to afford food, housing, and medical expenses, and increasing health care, including providers and mental health. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the country's much-loved but overstretched health system is in critical condition and must reform or die. He spoke after a government-commissioned report claimed years of neglect and botched reforms from the Conservative Party had made the UK an increasingly unhealthy nation. A coalition of 80 immigrant and civil rights groups and law firms are calling on the Department of Homeland Security and ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to release certain immigrants in detention that have already been granted protection from deportation and by the agency's own policies should no longer be detained. They say non-citizens who've applied for fear-based relief from deportation, claiming they'd be persecuted in their home country if forced to return there, should be released when given approval, but are not. Priya Patel is a supervising attorney at the California Collaborative for Immigrant Justice.
These are people who have been in ICE detention for a very long time already, fighting their cases. They've proved to an immigration judge who has agreed that they have a more likely than not chance of being persecuted or tortured. And although ICE has been instructed through policy memos dating back 20 years ago that these people need to be released absent exceptional circumstances, we've seen that ICE across the country has implemented a policy of ad hocly, or even in some cases blanketly, keeping in detention these people for months and months and sometimes even years.
The rights groups allege ICE continues to detain non-citizens who've won their appeals while attempting to deport them to another country instead. Patel says after a recent lawsuit in Virginia, ICE was forced to concede the practices are unlawful, and they're now hoping to prompt a broad policy change instead of fighting hundreds of individual court battles. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.